Thank you. What is this one? This is the racing rules.
Oh, okay. Might need down.
Thank you, Glenn. Learning how to sail. Here, you can have my copy. It's been well loved. Have you gotten this?
That's almost as big as a Harvard Wave.
Or they have.
Look, in the Harbor 20.
Race, and so they don't want to risk it with, crew that don't know what they're doing.
So you still sail with Scott, or did you do that?
No, I'm in the Harbor 20.
Didn't you used to sail with Scott?
Oh, I grew up.
Are you saying they put a spin rating on the harbor? Okay, anybody else?
Okay, everybody get a seat,
Okay, I'll go back and check that.
Okay.
I'll change it up.
Yeah, she's doing fine.
27.
He's raced it a little bit of.
No, I don't think they would take.
No, Judy has, issues with that, weakness in the right side. But, you know, she's lucky to have him around with something like
So
that.
I'll go back.
Her skill is an interventional radiologist.
Okay, racing rules.
TJ's doing it.
US Sailing has a couple things out there on their website that Jim pointed out. If anybody's interested, you can get these, order these. This is a little summary, and then that's flags. Some of these we use, some of them we don't, but we need to know what the flags are. Okay? Good to have on your boat. All right, I got several situations I'm going to go over. I'm not covering every rule, so don't think this is a totally comprehensive review. But I tried to pick some, as we start, simpler ones to go through, and then they get a little bit more complicated as we go through the book. And Pete, you'll recognize these. So, in this situation, going upwind, we got a yellow boat, a blue boat. What rules apply between these two boats? There's one rule that always applies on that sheet you got.
14.
14. 14 says what?
Don't
Boarding
hold
contact.
inside of your boat.
So in all these situations we're going to talk about, Rule 14 applies, okay? In addition to Rule 14, what else applies between these two boats?
10.
Rule 10, which is?
Opposite attacks.
Okay, all right. So Rule 10 and Rule 14, all right? Sheet set up here. Okay. So, in this particular situation, is yellow required to hail starboard?
No.
Okay. Is it a good idea?
Yes.
All right, it is a good idea, just in case somebody on blue boat is not looking and doesn't realize you're there. It's always a good thing to yell starboard if your intent is on yellow boat that you want to cross in front of the blue boat. Okay. Did blue boat keep clear?
Yeah.
Blue boat's supposed to keep clear.
Okay, blue boat kept clear. Okay, but look at position 2. Did blue boat foul yellow boat?
Yes.
Okay, how come?
Yellow had to change course.
Right, yellow had to change course, so blue boat actually fouled yellow boat, okay? So in this situation, yellow boat should actually protest the blue boat and tell them that they can either, do their 720 or they're going to go to a protest committee, okay? So that's clear, right? All right, the next situation. Same thing, blue boat says hold your course. Does that change anything?
No.
Okay?
Yeah,
Huh?
it didn't change it if yellow said, blue said.
Blue said hold your course.
Okay.
Okay? That doesn't change anything, does it? okay? So even if blue boat says hold your course, that doesn't mean anything, okay? Is there any situation where yellow boat may actually want blue boat to cross?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, if yellow wants to keep that same heading and say blue boat is in a different fleet, and so I'm not really racing blue boat, and I don't want blue boat to all of a sudden tack right below me and give me bad air, I might just yell, go ahead and cross, and wave them across, okay? Because I wanna keep on the starboard tack that I'm on in yellow boat. That doesn't happen very often, but it could happen, okay? And if a Harbor 20 is gonna cross me and I'm not racing Harbor 20s, I might just say, go ahead and cross, you know? So keep that in mind, alright?
We could aspire to being up there.
Yeah. Alright, so that was pretty clear, right? Situation 7. Okay, we have a windward mark, we have a yellow boat, we have a blue boat. So yellow boat, again, has right of way, right? Which rules apply?
10 applies, well, 14 applies, can't hit anybody
14,
else.
don't hit anybody.
10 applies, because yellow is on starboard
Okay,
versus green and blue.
there's rules on the back sheet too.
And 11 applies to the green and blue.
Our,
Yeah,
over,
11
our overlap,
applies.
right.
Okay. Also, if you look on the back, rules 19 and 20 also apply between blue and the green, okay? In this particular situation, okay, yellow overall has right of way, right? Because they're on starboard tack. But between blue and green, who has to make the decision of what they're gonna do?
Blue.
Okay, blue has the right of way over green because they're leeward of them, okay? So blue has two options here. Blue can say, okay, starboard, I'm going to duck yellow, okay, and go behind them, is one option. So if blue decides to duck yellow, what's the option for green?
Tack or duck.
Tack or duck. If blue decides to duck, blue also has to give green, because there's an overlap between these boats. Blue has to give green room to duck also, okay? If blue decides that he's gonna tack, he needs to inform green, as in this scenario right there where it says I need room to tack. And then green is obligated to do one of two things in this situation. Green either has to tack so blue boat can tack to avoid the starboard boat, or green somehow needs to say, go ahead and tack and slow down and go behind the blue boat and the yellow boat. Now that's gonna be difficult if they're running the same speed. If blue happens to be a lot faster than green, that might work, but, green does have the option of ducking both of them, but that could be difficult, as far as Rule 14, avoiding contact, doing that. Especially if they're boats similar, you know, two harbors and they're the same speed going up there, green's gonna have a hard time slowing down to duck both of them, okay? So in this situation, yellow overall has the right of way. Blue between blue and green has a right of way over green. And can dictate, are they gonna duck yellow or are they going to tack and go over to starboard, okay? Yeah, Don?
If, yellow did not yell starboard, can blue decide they need to tack, cause that's gonna happen, and
Yeah,
at what point?
because we said earlier, yellow is not required to yell starboard. Yellow is on starboard, therefore yellow has the right of way.
Does it have to be within, what is that, 3 boat lengths or something of the mark, that they can do that, or
No.
anytime?
3 boat length circles up there is the dotted line, this is out well before you get to that. So Yellow does not have to yell starboard, but it's always a good thing to do to let people know that you're over there. You know, green may not even be able to see yellow, you know, depending on trying to look through the sails of blue right there. So, it's always a good idea, especially if you like your gel coat, yell starboard. Now, if it's real windy out there, it may be hard to hear. There's one other thing I'll mention too, but Pete had a question.
I was just gonna mention, it's very risky for green to decide to duck also, because there's a better than even chance blue is not gonna leave room. And that puts you in a position of going right into the side of yellow boat.
Yeah, that's true. But if blue doesn't give green room to duck, green can also protest blue
Yeah,
too.
okay, that's a good.
But you're right. Now, the other thing when you duck, okay, to keep in mind, if it's more than 5 mile an hour wind, you better have your hand on the sheets, the main sheet and the jib, especially the main sheet. I must have timed out, I'm talking too much. But yeah, it's. Yeah. So if blue's gonna duck and green also needs to duck, keep your hand on the main sheet and somebody on the jib, if you have a jib, and ease them out to duck. Just turning the rudder, especially if it's real windy, it ain't gonna turn fast enough. And you're gonna end up hitting yellow. So please remember that. We've had that situation happen, I can remember at least 3 times on this lake. And I've also seen it happen at some other regattas. So if it's windy, the boat's not gonna respond fast enough just by moving the tiller. You'll have to ease the sheets if you're ducking. And do it ahead of time. Don't wait till the last second to do it. Because if you do it ahead of time and you drop down, then you got a better angle coming across the stern of the starboard boat. If you wait till the last second, that's gonna slow you down anyway, so. Yeah, Ken?
If blue says I need room to tack and doesn't, if green doesn't respond, how long does blue have to wait to tack?
I would say if you're blue and you tell green you need room to tack and yellow's approaching pretty fast, I would go ahead and start my tack and yell at them again.
I mean,
If not, you're gonna T-bone yellow.
blue has to avoid 2 boats to
Yeah.
avoid collision, but the yellow one has right of way and the green one is not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
And if you assume that if they don't tack, then they're gonna duck, then you have to go ahead and,
yeah. I
If
would
blue,
go
you have
ahead
to go
and
ahead and
commit. If I was blue, I'd go ahead and commit, cause I'd rather hit a boat going the same direction I am at a glancing blow than T-bone another boat.
rather miss them both.
Yeah. But yeah, if green doesn't respond to blue, then, you know, you're gonna have to protest.
I mean, I think if blue says I need room to tack, then green has to tack immediately.
Well,
Isn't that the way the rules
it
right?
needs to be enough time to allow blue to tack to avoid yellow. You know, if you yell at blue and you're a football field away,
Right.
Now,
and
the only
green
thing
doesn't
that's honored in verbals is yelling protest, right? The rest is the action of your boat. So if you never
Well,
commit,
in
they don't have to
this-
commit to your movement.
in this situation, blue should tell green, I need room to tack.
But he's
because
not
green
obliged
doesn't
to.
know. Green doesn't know, are they gonna tack or are they gonna duck?
Yeah.
Okay? Green
until
may assume
blue
that we're
makes its
gonna
move.
duck.
You don't have to make your move.
So when,
So blue needs to tell green what they're gonna do, okay?
Yeah, there has to be.
and
a
blue's,
kind of tag.
when blue says I need room to tack,
Yes.
green's obligation is to
is to respond by tacking as soon as possible or immediately replying UTAC.
That's right.
And then their obligation is to keep clear.
But the word immediately is in there.
Reasonable in the time.
So it's not it's a very, very brief period of time.
And there may be in that picture.
Yeah, if you look at Rule 20, it talks about hailing. A boat should hail for room to tack at an obstruction to avoid a boat on the same tack. She shall not hail unless she must make a substantial course change to pass the obstruction safely and she is close haul, whatever, but, yeah, so
I see now.
Rule 20, blue should hail green to tell them what they're gonna do, okay? But just remember, if blue decides to duck, you also gotta leave room for green to get in there too, since there's an overlap. Okay, you can't just force green into the yellow boat,
But he had the choice to tack.
okay?
He had the choice to tack.
Yeah, now green can decide, you know, blue's gonna duck and I'm gonna tack, you know, you can always do that, like Pete was saying, so.
Are you gonna talk about obstruction for running aground in the same breath?
No, that wasn't one of my scenarios I was gonna talk about.
It's the same, it's just something, I learned this early on, and it's something like, a lot of times we're starting in Bull Run. And if we're starting in Bull Run and you're sailing over toward the shore, and on a starboard tack after starting, and the boat that's below you knows she's gonna run aground, and says, I need room to tack for an obstruction, the rule requires immediately tack and let her tack, rather than running her into the shore. So it's kind of the same thing, if somebody says room to tack, you do need to oblige them right away.
Yeah.
But, and if you think that they're wrong, you can protest later, but you can't.
Yeah,
Good luck.
because you want to draw, you draw for
Okay, y'all ready to try another one?
I've got one
Okay.
thing on the previous one, Glenn.
Yeah.
If blue bears away and breaks the overlap with green, then it doesn't have to give green in the room when it crosses yellow, does it?
So it wouldn't be.
At the
If it breaks the
time,
overlap.
if they're far enough away from yellow that blue could do that, that may be true. But if you're headed, it's my understanding, if you're both headed to windward and you're overlapped, then at that point, you have to make the decision, are we gonna duck or are we gonna, tack? That if blue decides to duck at that point, they have to give green room, because you're right, blue's gonna turn first before green.
And it's gonna pick up speed when it goes off the wind.
Yeah,
So it can very easily break the overlap with green.
yeah, but you need to be pretty far away to make that legitimate.
Okay, all right.
Because you wouldn't do that going to windward unless you needed to duck the other boat. So at
But
the
you
point,
it might come into play if you did it early on, rather
Yeah.
than waiting to the last minute to do
Yeah.
that, you could make a decision.
yeah, but if you're coming up close to a boat and there is an overlap, and you
Yeah.
decide to duck, then you need to leave room for the other boat.
Right, I agree with that. I was just assuming that we were further back, not right on top of the other boat, so.
Okay, let's try another one. Situation 8. We're at the windward mark. There's a 3 boat length circle. There's blue and yellow again. So at position 1, what rule applies?
Is yellow in the zone there in that picture?
Yellow bows just touching the zone, yeah.
Yeah.
So at position 1, just look at position 1, what rule applies?
12.
Which rule?
12.
18.
12. They're on the same tack and not overlapped, right?
And yellow's in the zone, right?
Yellow has just touched the zone, yeah.
Yeah.
But rule 12 applies because they're the same tack, not overlap. So if you look at yellow, you look at rule, what we say, 12, same tack, not overlap. Okay, then at that point, yellow has a right of way, right?
Yes.
Okay? At position 2, what happens?
What it says on the
You
screen.
know, but yellow still has right.
Okay? You overlap, but yellow still has a right of way. And what rule gives yellow the right of way?
18.
Within 3 lengths circle or not.
18B, okay? If boats are overlapped, when the first reaches a zone, the outside boat will give mark room. If clear ahead on reaching the zone, the boat clear ahead shall give mark room. But at this point right here, yellow is clear ahead when they reach the zone, so yellow does not have to give blue any right of way at that point. So at position 3, you can see blue ducks behind yellow because there was no overlap at the 3 boat length zone, okay? All right, and it's the boat that reaches the zone first, okay? So yellow reaches the zone first, even though blue may be faster and now has an overlap at position 2, blue is obligated to slow down and go behind yellow at this point, okay?
The zone's always gonna be created by the first boat in the zone? Okay.
That's important to know.
So if that's a 100-foot boat, that's
Right.
300 feet.
I was just gonna say,
Yes, the
that's
first
defined by
boat.
the first boat's length.
Okay,
So you said slow down and go behind, but actually they could slow down and follow
they could
if
follow,
they didn't want to make that much of a course deviation.
right. Right, and then in position 3, what's going on there?
Yellow is tacking, blue is bearing.
Okay? Alright, so if I look at, if I look at 18.2b for position 3, if boats are overlapped when the first reaches the zone, the outside boat will give mark room. If clear ahead on reaching the zone, the boat clear ahead shall give mark room.
Next time.
So blue went to the stern of yellow to give yellow mark room to allow yellow to go around the mark, right?
Yep.
Okay? And then at position 4, what's going on there? Yellow has already tacked. Yellow has already tacked to starboard because they were on port coming up. And blue is still going straight, so really they say rule 10 applies there, that they're on opposite tacks because blue has not come across yet. But blue's not in the way, so they're okay there, okay? Now remember, this only applied because they were both on the same tack coming up there. They were both on port tack, right? Any other questions on that?
Are you gonna cover E on the lure mark routing? There's an argument, so there's agreement. 18.2E, you've got it on here.
I'm not sure that one's listed as one of the ones I was gonna cover. Let's
You wanna
see.
mention it?
Well, this one right here will do it, won't it? This,
You could do it right here too.
Yeah, I
because-
think you can do it here. This is situation 9, okay? Still the same scenario that we're going to windward, but what's the difference here? What's in position 1, what rule applies here?
You're entering at the same time.
Okay? Right? And what's the difference from the previous scenario?
There's an overlap.
There's an overlap, okay? So, since there's an overlap, who has to give who room this time?
Yellow gets one.
Yeah, yellow has to give blue room, right? Okay, that's back to rule 18, okay? And then Pete mentioned rule E, if you look under 18.2E, if there is doubt an overlap was obtained or broken, it will be assumed it was not. So that rule is saying that if there's doubt that whether or not the overlap was broken, the assumption is it will not be broken, and you can protest if you want to.
You lose,
Huh?
but you lose.
Yeah.
The beauty of Rule 18.2E is that, first of all, if in this case, yellow's good and claims that, or blue claims, I have an overlap, and yellow says, no, you didn't have an overlap, then E says it will be assumed there was none. So that means blue can protest, but she's gonna lose the protest. So the idea is, rather than running into each other, realize, in this case, which vote's gonna lose the protest. In the same way, if you had an overlap all the way to the zone, and at the last minute, yellow thinks she broke that overlap, then Rule E says it will be assumed you didn't. So in other words, once again, the rule says exactly who's gonna win the argument, which is pretty cool. If you know that going in, don't press it, because you'll lose, A, you'll be in a collision, and B, you will lose the argument.
Unless, of course, you've got hard evidence that you had overlap, like a witness.
It's kind of a crapshoot, right?
Yeah, you're definitely taking your chances.
Yeah.
And you've gotta make sure there's no collision.
The whole idea there is to avoid people trying to force themselves in and having a collision. So, anyway, thank you.
I mean, the other side of that is just honoring the fact that people have overlap.
Who voted position 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really, it depends on what's happening at position 0, which is not shown on the screen. If before, at position 0, blue was well behind, then yellow can get to the zone and say, we have to assume there was no overlap because there was no overlap before.
Yeah.
But as you said, Glenn, if at position 0 there was an overlap, then 18E says if blue can claim there was a overlap and the rule says it was assumed that it wouldn't have been broken. I didn't put that well, but I think you get the point.
Can I throw one other thought out? It's a practice that I've learned early on. If you are the inside vote, it's a polite thing to say, room at the mark, please. And say it really loud so everybody around you can hear. In the same way, if you're yellow and there is no overlap when you reach the zone, if you holler again as loud as you can, no overlap, no room, then everybody knows you've established that. And if it does come to an argument later or a protest, you have at least notified that and staked your ground.
Okay. All right, now I'm gonna complicate it a little bit more.
Hey, Glenn, on that one though, can you go back to that one? How quickly does the blue boat have to round that mark? I mean, it looks like he's heading off. Is there some rule about him rounding that mark smartly?
Yeah. Once blue comes around, he has to round the mark.
He can't drive up like it's showing there.
Can't drive up because once you pass the mark, what rule is in effect?
Oh, then it's just
Speed.
whatever. 12 or no?
Same tack,
11.
rule 11, same
11.
same tack overlap.
Yeah.
So once you've passed the mark, same tack overlap, okay? And the windward boat has to stay off the leeward boat, okay? So if the leeward boat needs room to tack and you're the windward boat, you have to do your tack. You can't just keep driving to shore.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So position 4 is actually
Yeah.
a protest position.
Yeah,
Yes.
position 4, if the blue boat carried that too far, yellow could actually protest under Rule 11.
Okay.
Because you've passed the mark.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and you need to go ahead and
go
do your tack.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, Richard?
How does the race committee decide the circle
If one boat says it's 60 feet, the other one says, no, it was 65 feet. It's really hard to determine exact feet out there.
Yeah, there's no circle out there on the water. It's gonna be, you know, the people on the boats making the argument of, you know, where the overlap started at the zones. It's real easy to pick it out up here because, you know, you can look at it from aerial, but yeah, that's subjective.
And that's why 18.2E is so important.
Yeah.
If there's doubt if an overlap was obtained or broken, it will be assumed it was not.
Yeah, that makes it a little more difficult, so, yeah, and just to get a perspective of that, they say, you know, an easy way to do that is, say you're doing harbor 20s. If there's 3 harbor 20s tied up to the dock one day when you're walking by, just stand at the back one and look at it, you know, what the distance is, and that'll give you an idea of what a 3 boat length zone is for a harbor 20. So,
That's what guys say when they tell you how big the fish was.
yeah. Okay, let's try another one. Situation 12, okay? Who entered the zone first in this situation?
Blue,
Blue, okay? Who has the right of way?
yellow,
Okay? Yellow, why?
Starboard tack.
Starboard tack. And they're going what way?
to windward.
To windward. Right, that's the key. If you're going to windward and you're on opposite tacks, that zone doesn't mean anything, okay? It's port starboard, okay? Now, so yellow has the right of way, all right? Now, look real close at how the sails are trimmed on the 2 boats, because that's going to be key here, okay? So we've already said in position 1, rule 10, on opposite tacks, that yellow has the right of way. So position 2, blue is starting to tack, right? So what rule covers while tacking?
13.
Okay, and what does that say?
After passing heavy wind, tacking boat has to keep clear.
Right, until on a close haul course, okay? So while tacking in position 2, blue has to stay clear of yellow, okay? Then in position 3, okay? What's the rule here?
Windward boat.
18.3.
Okay? 18.3 talks about acquiring right of way, and what else? Somebody else said it, windward boat, which is rule what? 11. They're on the same tack and they're overlapped, right? In position 3. Okay? So what does 18.3 say?
Blue can't force yellow to sail above close hauled course.
Right. Okay? So, did yellow sail above a close haul course?
No.
Hard to say, but it looks like not.
Do you see yellow's sail fluttering as they're above close haul?
Nope.
Okay, no. So in this particular case, the way this is drawn, yellow didn't sail above close haul, okay? So can blue do what blue did right there?
Yes.
Actually, that's correct, okay? It's risky, because if I'm yellow and somebody pulls in there close to me, I might come up harder than you expected me to above close haul to try to avoid you, okay? So you're gambling pretty heavy, but the only way this works is if yellow actually kind of overstood the mark and is not close haul. If yellow's coming up there and it's close haul and blue does that, yellow's going to go above close haul and their sails are going to start luffing some. And then at that point, then blue has fouled yellow. But if yellow way overstood the mark and is coming in with the sails out a little bit, you know, and they're, you know, not going close haul, blue could actually sneak in there. Again, that's risky, but I would say in position 1, port starboard, Most cases in a situation like this, what you're gonna need to do, is blue is gonna need to duck yellow and go behind yellow, okay? The other is risky, but just wanted to make you aware that that situation could happen, okay? Any other questions on that?
Mention Rule 14 though, too.
Rule 14, always applies, avoiding contact. Yep. So, blue needs to be real careful if they're gonna try a maneuver like that, because, there might not be room in there, okay? Alright? Now, I didn't do a picture of this right here, but if for some reason, you're coming into a mark like that and blue tries to pull a stunt like that and there's not room, what's blue's option? Go below the mark, circle around, and then go around it, okay?
Go to the last place.
Yeah, if blue realizes that in position 2 that, hey, yellow's gonna go above close haul, then, turn that again. Then, blue could always, duck below the mark, round it again, but that's gonna be a problem too if there's more boats coming up there. A lot of times with our fleet, that's not a big deal, but if you're racing a fleet of one design and there's a lot of boats coming up, you might end up 4 or 5 boats passing you before you get around more. So, okay, any other questions on that one? Okay. Situation 17. I got a couple more here. Just get right page. So I got yellow and blue again. And they're going downwind to the next mark. Okay? So what position 1, what rule applies there?
12.
Rule 12. And what does that say?
So clear ahead or clear astern.
Okay?
One of the same
They're on the
tack.
same tack, but they're not overlapped. Okay, so 12 applies, and then as always, 14 applies, so 12 can't, yellow can't, run up into the back of blue either, okay? We don't do bump drafting and sailboat racing, so you can't run up behind them and bump them. So which boat has the right of way at this position?
Blue.
Okay, so blue can go wherever she needs to go to the mark, right? Because there's no overlap, okay? If the mark is back that way and blue continues on, at some point, blue may have to do what? Jive, okay? What happens when blue jives?
They're on port.
It's gonna be on port, right? Then who's gonna have the right of way?
Yellow.
Yellow, okay? So yellow's kinda in the controlling position right here, because yellow is keeping blue from jiving at this point, as long as yellow continues going down that way, okay? Even though blue has the right of way, blue can stay far enough ahead and then, ease on over before she jives, so that she's like almost in front of yellow, so that she doesn't interfere with her. Okay. But yeah, as long as yellow can maintain that position right below blue, you can keep blue from jiving, because once they jive, then you have the right of way. So, okay, any other questions on that one?
Are you gonna cover what happens if blue catches up, if yellow catches up with blue? You are, thank you.
Okay. So that's 18, situation 18. So in this case, yellow is behind blue, which is what we already talked about. But then yellow catches up with blue, okay? So what rule applies in position 2 here?
17.
11. Same tack overlap, that's right. What else applies?
14, avoid contact.
Okay, 14 applies, okay? All right,
But
17.
since Rule 12 applies, Because she came from Clear Stern.
She came from Clear Stern, okay? So what does that mean? Yellow has a right of way, because they're lower. Can yellow take blue up, head to wind?
No.
She can't sail above her proper course.
Right, she can't take her up ahead of wind because yellow established the overlap from clear behind to leeward, okay? All right. So yellow, even though they established an overlap, cannot start taking blue way up and off course because of the way she's established the overlap.
Is that
Okay.
17?
That's,
17.
17, yeah.
All right, question. So the proper course is for that boat, not what, because I've had somebody with a spinnaker come beside me and they can head up more than I can, but I couldn't. And they're yelling at me to sail the proper course. They wanted me to go their same direction, but I couldn't. I would fall off, I would not be in the wind anymore, but they're telling me that I'm the one that's messing them up and not following the rules.
But it depends on how the overlap was established. If the overlap was established, yellow was behind and catches up with blue.
Okay, I was in front and they came beside me,
Okay.
so
So-
they came up
So,
with a spin and they want me to go.
Are you saying yellow is over here?
She's blue.
No, she's blue and the other boat is yellow.
Yeah.
And yellow has a spinnaker up, but you don't. Doesn't really make a difference. But you're saying that you at two, you in blue
I'm
at
saying
two.
the way they wanted me to move, I wouldn't have been able to, I've been in the wind.
so were you the leeward boat in that situation?
I'm trying to remember where
Were-
the wind was. Let's see, there,
If you talk about two boat lengths apart, if you create
Yeah,
the overlap
side
from
by
two
side.
boat
Yeah.
lengths away,
So were you looking under your main at their boat, or were you looking under their main?
I don't remember, but I just know we were like this and they wanted to go this way, but I couldn't because, actually, I think we were,
So what you're talking about is Rule 17, I think. If a boat clear stern establishes an overlap within 2 boat lengths to leeward, she shall not sail above proper course except to duck windward, okay? So if this distance between these two is less than 2 boat lengths, then yellow cannot sail above her proper course, okay?
But
But
that
the
proper
problem-
course is defined by what yellow thinks proper course is.
Yes.
So if your boat's coming, there's a wind shift
So
coming,
if
or
one of
there's
them
other
has-
boats coming,
Spinnaker, like I got an asymmetrical spinnaker versus a symmetrical spinnaker. So proper course for me may be sailing up higher
right,
than what the other boat is, okay? So as long as I don't force that boat to go head to wind,
that's what
then
was gonna
I'm
happen.
still on my proper course.
Okay, so I was in the right to hold my ground.
No, it sounds like that you weren't. It sounds
No.
like if two
If
is as.
if yellow overlaps you and is sailing yellow's proper course, then blue has to come up some.
but if
Now,
you were
you
the,
can't force blue to head to wind.
But you can force them to go to a reach.
Yeah, you
Well,
can force them up some.
coming from Clear Stern, not at two boat lengths apart. Because there is a difference there. The rule states within 2 boat lengths versus if you have
Yeah.
2 boat lengths to leeward.
She shall
Now you
not
can lock.
sail above proper course.
But proper course for an asymmetric may
Yeah,
actually
proper
be-
course for an asymmetric may be different than proper course for somebody, with a main and jib going downwind.
So you could, if yellow had established her overlap out here and the two kept going, he could certainly force blue
Yeah,
up.
they were right next.
But if they're right next to each other like this, yellow can't force force blue up.
Well-
Even though, if this
You
is
know,
an, an
It gets
ASIN
difficult
boat,
on what proper course is.
Right.
even if this is an ASIN boat and could, their proper course is to take deep jives, they couldn't force them up.
Yeah.
Yes, they can.
Yeah, they
Look,
can.
You see?
Yellow cannot sail above her proper course once she's established an overlap on blue, and for as long as she remains within 2 boat lengths of blue, on the same tack.
And who
Her
defines proper course?
could
Proper,
be 10 degrees farther away from the mark than 2.
Yeah, but
unless,
in doing so, she probably sails astern of the
All right, there is a note here, and this may help clarify. Note, blue can sail below her proper course at all times as long as she keeps clear of yellow. Well, that doesn't help us any.
and when you get into the protest committee, the definition of proper course for yellow is what yellow's skipper thinks the proper course is. Now, they take that with a chunk of salt. But yellow could look astern and say, oh, there are boats that are coming from up where it says racing rules. There are boats up there, and they're gonna pass me. My proper course is to head them off. And so yellow could head up.
But rule 12 applies, because if they're coming up from astern, they have to keep clear of blue.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a difficult one probably to win. Yeah.
All right, I wanna hear what you said, cause you disagreed.
Yeah, if that's Glenn's boat or a Spinnaker boat and their proper course is to go up higher, they can sail their own proper course without regard to what it's doing to you.
Okay, now I remember a little bit more about it. We had no steerage because it was a light wind day. Of course, the person with the spinnaker was able to go. We couldn't turn if we wanted to, and so are we fouling them because we don't have a proper course? We can't even move. We can't, because we would have had to turn towards them to get our wind. We had no wind, is all I know, and they're yelling that we
You're
need
an
to
obstruction.
get less wind, it's,
Sound like you were an obstruction.
and it was,
Yeah,
I mean,
so they just,
who
Glenn
had the
can't go
right, I
above his
mean,
proper
can they,
course, but he
how
can sail
can they
his
force
proper
me
course
to
even if
move
it's
when
higher.
I can't move?
Well, if you're not moving at all, I would say the other boat
But
is moving.
can they protest me because I'm sitting there with no wind?
The answer is
Absolutely.
they can
If you put
protest
yourself in
you.
that,
They can protest you, but whether or not they win the protest, if you had no wind and no steerage.
So there's not a rule that says I fouled him in that regard.
Well, it has to be a rule of common sense that comes into play in some of these things, so.
I would say
You can't make a rule to
you
cover
would go
every
back to the rule
situation.
about an obstruction, so.
And if they put you in a situation where you had no way on, you were not moving, their fundamental, basic rule is 14. They have to avoid contact.
Yeah, avoid
Okay.
contact.
And so they can yell all they want, and lots of professional,
So if they
aggressive
put me in that
sailors will
position,
yell.
then I would have had a right. Okay,
Okay, I knew this would get fun.
thank you.
Okay, situation 19. Okay, this is the leeward mark, okay? So we got 3 boats again, yellow, green, and blue, right? So, who gets to the, well, let's back up. Position 1, okay, what applies in position 1? What rules apply?
and
Okay.
windward leeward.
Which is rule 10, opposite tacks, port and starboard, okay? So green is on, port, blue is on port, and yellow is on starboard, okay? So in position 2, what applies here?
Same.
Same. Can
Okay.
you change that?
Position-
Except the green and yellow are over.
Okay, green and yellow are overlap. Blue has reached the 3 boat length circle. And as y'all pointed out before, blue's a larger boat than, green and yellow. So the three-boat link circle is established by blue, because blue gets to it first.
Blue's broken the overlap by
Okay.
heading down.
So there is no overlap, okay?
I think that's important. I mean, in position one, there is an overlap.
Mm,
position-
yeah.
In position
Position
two,
one, there is an overlap.
position
two,
blue,
there's not.
so blue turning down changes the angle of their stern, and so
Right,
he breaks the overlap.
breaks the overlap, okay? So why is that important, Ken?
Because now he has mark room
Okay,
over both those.
It doesn't have to give mark room.
right. So
Right.
blue has the right of way because they got to the three-boat link circle first. And even though they're on opposite tacks from yellow, it's the leeward mark, not the windward mark, okay? If this was a windward mark, then it's port starboard, but this is a leeward mark, okay? So the leeward mark, blue actually has the right of way over green and yellow, okay? So blue does not have to give mark room. Blue can round, the way she wants to round in a seaman-like way, okay? Now how about between yellow and green?
Yellow
What's the
has-
deal there?
Green has to give yellow mark room.
Yellow's,
Okay,
green's starboard.
all right.
Yellow's
What's the reason that green has to give yellow mark room?
They were overlapped when the boat that was ahead got to the zone.
Right, and when they get to the zone in position three, they're still overlapped, right? Okay, so position three, there's still an overlap, so green has to give yellow mark room, okay? Which means also green has to give yellow room to be able to jibe over too. Green can't be so close to yellow that when she jibes over and her boom hits green, then green has fouled yellow, right? Okay,
Are you gonna talk about tactical rounding versus seaman rounding?
I wasn't planning on talking about all that.
Well, I mean,
a
blue is in the
tactical-
shape. Yeah, talk about it. I think that's important.
A tactical rounding versus a seaman rounding. So between green and yellow, it doesn't apply so much to blue because blue's way ahead. So blue can do a tactical rounding, okay? Blue can drop down here and come up real close to the mark to do a tactical rounding, okay? Yellow, even though yellow has the right of way and has room, can't come way out here and do a tactical rounding. Okay? Yellow has to stay fairly close and then just round as best you can right there, okay? Which is a seaman rounding, okay? So green doesn't have to give yellow so much room that she can do a tactical rounding. She just has to give enough room so that when yellow jibes over, her boom doesn't hit her, and when she gets to the mark, she has room to go around the mark, okay?
And that's only because of the overlap, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Glenn.
So at which point, Glenn,
Okay?
so at what point, let's just say that yellow jibes over, comes up, does a seaman-like rounding, supposedly. Green is getting closer. At what point does the mark room turn off and it become windward leeward?
It's gonna be after they have come around the mark and they're past the mark, then at that point, it's back to windward leeward, okay?
For which boat?
Well, yellow is gonna be inside of green, so yellow is gonna be windward and green is gonna be leeward.
No, I mean, which boat is past the mark? The inside boat?
You're assuming they go around the mark at the same
No.
time?
Yeah.
I would say Green doesn't get the right of way until she's past the mark.
So she's past the mark.
Yeah,
So if
because,
yellow is past the mark,
because if
it's
Green
still
hasn't
overlap.
passed the mark, then I don't think you can say the windward leeward applies yet. I think it has to be until they're both past the mark, and then you can say windward leeward applies. As long as they're still going around the mark, then it's still Rule 18.
But it says 18 no longer applies when mark room has been given. So once that yellow boat
Yeah,
gets around the mark, that's the end of Rule 18 for those two boats.
yeah, but
so then green would be able to come up.
So, would you guys mind if I ask a question just from
Yeah.
newer sailor, like a scenario in this? Because, you know, from being in a couple races now, I can imagine a scenario I might be in. Let's say I come around the mark and I can't point as highly, I'm yellow, and I come around the mark and I can't point as highly as the green boat. I'm the windward boat. I have to give way to the leeward boat, but they point higher than me, and they're coming across my bow. Do I just
you have to
turn it into irons,
You have
bleed
to
a little
tack.
bit of speed,
You don't have to.
or tack?
or tap.
Or attack.
Yeah.
Okay, either one of those.
Yeah.
Head to wind.
Yeah, because in that situation has happened before. Cause I know, especially when I sailed the J-24, it would point really good compared to other boats that were around. A lot of times you could be going upwind, even not around the mark, but going upwind, and the other boat's going this way and you're going this way. Well, when you get to the point that there's an overlap and you're going to windward, you tell them that, you know, you're in a windward boat, you gotta do something.
Yeah.
You know, they can't just keep forcing you off.
Gotcha, okay,
So,
thanks.
so even though you can't point as high as the other boat, you're gonna have to tack or go in irons or something, get out of their way.
Yeah, and Don, that could feed into your scenario too, you know, it might be similar, I don't know what the exact situation is, but just because you're in a situation that doesn't work for you, doesn't mean you have a right of way, right?
Yeah, correct. So it's the windward leeward, will take into effect once it passes the mark, okay? I got one more, right? I got one more. This is, at the starting line. So I got, gray and green, and then yellow and blue. So at the starting line, this is before the start, okay? Because, how do you know it's before the start, or how should you know it's before the start?
Below the line.
Huh?
They're below the start finish line.
And,
Class flag hasn't come down.
And they're luffing.
yeah, and they're luffing.
They're lucky.
Yellow and blue are still luffing, right?
Yes.
If the start has already started, they shouldn't be sitting there luffing, right? So this is before
Ideally.
the start. Because yellow and blue
It's happened.
are sitting there luffing, okay?
Right in front of us.
So, in this situation, what rules apply here?
Windward, leeward?
Okay,
19.
so rule 19, how about rule 12?
Overlap.
So there is an overlap, right? So since there's an overlap, same tack overlap, then it goes back to 11, right?
You got a little bit of 14 going on.
Okay, yeah, you can't yet, okay. So, windward leeward between green and gray, who has the right of way?
Great.
Gray, okay? Alright, so gray is a controlling boat between green and gray, okay? So what are gray's options?
Can turn up.
Can turn up, okay? Alright? And when she turns up, what does she has to do?
Give green room.
Okay,
Well, give Reed an opportunity to keep clear.
Correct.
right. So you gotta give the opportunity to green to keep clear, okay? If she
Gray
wants,
drive green into yellow?
huh?
Can gray force green to go up to yellow, or is
No.
yellow is in fact?
So if gray wants to duck yellow and blue, is what you're saying, okay? What is the rule that applies if gray wants to duck yellow and blue?
19.
19, which is giving room in an obstruction, right? So if you look at 19, right page, 2B, when boats are overlapped, the outside boat will give room unless she has been unable to do so since the overlap began, okay? So here, green and gray are overlapped. Can gray give room? There's nobody down here blocking gray from giving room, is it? So gray can give room, right? So if gray decides she's gonna duck yellow and blue, then she has to give green room, okay? But if there were 5 other boats down here that gray can't give green room fast enough to allow green in there, then it's kind of like tough. I mean, I know you want room, but there's 5 other boats lined up
Isn't it
against
the
me.
one at the
I
end
can't
of that-
give you room fast
The
enough.
one at the end of that chain has to give room?
Yeah, but by the time you get 5 boats to all react, it's gonna probably be too late to give room for green.
Right.
Okay.
I've seen that at a mark go in a race.
Yeah.
You know, pass the
Yeah.
problem on down.
It's not as big a problem here, but we've been in regattas where you got 30 or 40
Right,
boats on the
that's where it
start
was.
line,
Yeah,
and somebody's yelling that they want room,
right,
and you got 5 boats below you.
right.
Sometimes it ain't gonna happen fast enough for
No.
you to give green room,
Right.
okay? So, yeah, so in this situation, gray has room, gray can duck down, and gray has to give green room if she's gonna duck, okay? So to answer Dez's question earlier, gray cannot run green into yellow because they're an obstruction. It's before the start. Okay?
Just drag that out a little further.
Oops.
Put the picture back.
Okay?
Picture's gone.
You went sleep.
Let's say they get a little further, they're still luffing, green and gray, get to the pin side. Is everyone obliged to give gray pin room? So you keep going, blue and yellow keep luffing.
Okay, so you're saying green and gray are over here,
Yeah, we presume they pull up,
okay?
and do they have, can gray force a hole?
No.
Well, gray can go up, but she can't go past head to wind.
Okay, but as long as it's not.
After
Before the start, you have no proper course.
Before the start, you can go head to win.
Yep, and you could force everybody else to go ahead to win too.
Okay, you can allow green room to come through, but then once you get past blue, then gray can start coming up, because gray's a leeward boat.
But everybody plays the game, blue's gonna pull it down a little, green's gonna do its best. Can gray force the whole line to move right?
Yeah, yeah, gray's the leeward boat, so gray can come up. And she could actually go head to wind like blue and yellow, but she can't go back over to port tack. If she goes back over to port tack, then she's just fouled everybody.
Lee's original question was, does gray have a right to go to the starboard side of the pin?
If she can do it and not go over to port tack. If she goes up head to wind and they're just sitting there head to wind, you can do that. But if she goes over to port tack, then it's no longer
Right.
windward leeward, it's port starboard.
Right,
she
so the
said she
pin,
has to
the
get
pin
these-
doesn't
and she's-
provide
And she's in the middle of attack.
the pin doesn't provide rights.
No, the pin's not
The
gonna be
pin doesn't
extra
come into
right.
play, it's just the regular rules.
Yeah, windward leeward.
You don't have rights, that's not like a mark that you
Yeah.
have rights to go around, okay.
Yeah, 'cause, yeah, gray's gonna wanna try to squeeze up once they get past the obstruction.
So does green has to head up and not push gray outside the line if he
Yes.
can?
Yes.
Green has to head up, but whether or not she pushes gray outside the line depends on how far up, how much room they have and how far up gray can go
But they
in the
can't
wind.
go farther to make you miss the line, is that barging?
Well, barging is usually considered over here when
Okay.
you're coming in where the committee voting is.
Okay, but can green make you gray miss the line?
No.
Okay.
No.
As long as great.
They can't
Is that-
intentionally make them miss the
Because the
line.
Lord book has the
But
right
they're
one.
gonna try.
Yeah,
Yeah. Green's obligation here is to keep clear of gray and not hit yellow
Right.
and not hit blue. And so if gray comes up and comes up and comes up and starts yelling, go up, go up, go up, go up.
yeah.
What does green have to do? Green has to keep clear of gray. Green is the windward boat, the windward boat has right
But
of
you
way.
can't drive green into blue or yellow.
No, as long as
You have to
they're
have the
overlapped,
hysteria
blue
going
and
on.
yellow,
Sorry.
blue and yellow are an
I
obstruction.
just
No,
try to inject a little bit of the,
You have to go to the
I was just
point
wondering
that
if it's
you
part of the
clear
rule,
the
is that
obstruction, then you can, keep forcing green up.
If everything goes south, gray ends up missing the start line, you have to come back through and you have the opportunity to protest if you want.
Yeah.
But if gray doesn't come up for the pin, then green can keep sailing.
Mhm.
This is also an example of not a great starting position, right? So maybe where you don't wanna be.
I'd like to be in gray.
Well, yeah.
You like to be gray, Jim?
Hopefully the line would be a little longer than that right there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, hopefully it had a little longer line. But yeah. But, yeah, so just remember if at the start, before the start signal, if some boats are sitting there, head to wind, waiting for the start, they are an obstruction, so you have to go around them. And if you're gonna duck them, if there's somebody inside of you, you're obligated to try to give that boat room. The only time that doesn't work, like I said, if there's 5 boats below you and you can't all react fast enough, then it's sort of, I understand I need to give you room, but there's not enough time to do it.
Now, in this scenario, for keel boats, there's not many times that you see the line with luffing your sail, whereas on a laser, we did that all the time.
No, I would think that on your J, you'd end up doing
You can
that.
accelerate that.
You
My
can do
learning
it.
will accelerate fast enough to make that worthwhile going.
It's usually better to, hit the line at speed and not be sitting there luffing, so.
Right.
But if you're in a huge fleet, you see a lot of this.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Okay,
If I can
that's
see
all the
pictures,
situations that I have come up with for today. We could sit here and talk about rules all day, but I figured y'all wanted to eat lunch.
Thank you, Glenn.
but you
job.
wanna plug that, if you can go back to whatever picture you had before situation 7, I didn't get a picture of it. I'm trying to put this together for those that couldn't be here today. And
The one before situation, what?
7, so if there's one before situation 7. That one, let me get that one, and then was there one before that one?
One?
Thank you. And where can we find those racing rules? Is there a website?
Yes.
World Sailing, US Sailing.
You
I mean,
mean,
did
you
you
mean the pictures I did?
Take all these off of a site?
No, I stole them from North U.
Okay.
The class people
North
went through
Class, okay.
back in 2012, I think. A long time ago.
and there's,
Was that the one that was here?
2009.
there,
Was that the one that was here?
No.
Oh,
there are a couple of
Yeah, we
books,
did do something back then, but we can't.
there are a couple of books, Don, I
They've
can
all
show you
changed
books.
since
You also get one of these.
Yeah.
Everybody ought to have one of these.
Yeah, the books that explain the rules are good. And like I said, this isn't all of them, but it's just some of the basic ones that I thought may happen here.
thank you.
Yeah, good job.
We need to have a quick board meeting, we can do it before, a quick membership meeting. We can do it before or after lunch.
Let's do it now.
Get over it.
Let's do it
Do it
now.
right now? Okay. By the way, if nobody has it, That's a US sailing book. It's very useful. That book, we covered 5 pages. It's 175 pages long. And I think one of the most important pieces of this to remember is we've got people who've almost never raced before and people who've raced for years and at a national level. And one of the things it talks about is sportsmanship. If you haven't raced before and we're coming to a mark, I need to make sure that I give you, yes, I can enforce my rights, but I need to give you the benefit of the doubt that you have not raced before and may not know what rules are going to apply. And I think that's very, very important because our fleet is too small and the experience gap is too wide. Start with bylaws. We passed around, emailed around copies of a revised set of bylaws. The reason for that was we actually have two classes of membership that was never allowed in our old bylaws. I think everybody had a chance to read them. The only adjustments that have been made to these bylaws since that was passed around were to correct some capitalization and shorten the words board of directors to board and fine board. So the first question is, does anybody have any questions about the bylaws and the changes in the bylaws? Mike Maloney had one, and I'll just present it and he can correct me if I get it wrong. There is a statement in here that the board of directors will appoint a handicap committee, and that the handicap committee will set handicaps for the fleet. Mike has pointed out that for years he's had to do it because nobody was interested, and until last year we never, I don't remember a handicap committee for years. My feeling about it is that it's an unfair task to put on a single individual. If they set my handicap or your handicap, I can all, because we're all members of the same sailing club, we're all sailing, we can all feel that they may have been prejudiced against our boat, or they may be, benefiting somebody else's boat. So I think it's a very difficult thing to put on one person, which is why I left it the same as it was in this set of bylaws as it was in the former set of bylaws. If anybody wants to discuss it or disagree with it, now's the time.
I think it's a lot easier for the fleet captain to just do it, because we do not change handicaps hardly ever. The only time we need a handicap committee is possibly when someone says, hey, my boat just won't sail for the PHRF numbers, and you need to get a couple people from that fleet together and form a committee. But on just the day-to-day, year-to-year business, it's just easy for the fleet captain, I think, to just do it.
It seems like the appeal, I mean, if somebody appeals their rating, that shouldn't be decided by one person.
That's when you have a committee.
Yeah.
This is embedded in the bylaws still, that we, if there is a challenge, that we put together a committee that includes representatives of each fleet, plus the commodore or vice commodore.